Hey, what's going on everyone? This is BekBrace channel. My name is Amir, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how to create a CLI to-do application using Python programming language. Now, I know that you might be thinking, oh my god, another to-do application. Believe me, this one is going to be fun. As you can see, the interface is kind of a retro-ish. So this is a very simple to-do application where you can add your to-do, you can delete a to-do, you can mark your to-do if it's complete, or you can quit the application altogether. Also in this tutorial, we're going to be learning how to save our data inside a separate file. So it's some sort of database, if you will, but we're going to use the pickle module. It's actually used for serializing and deserializing Python objects. And I'm going to talk about that later, but for now, let me show you a quick demo of the application. So you can see we have a table with ID numbers, to-do title for each to-do item. Created at is another feature where you can store your to-do item using the date and the exact hour where you have typed your to-do item. Also completed and incompleted, you can see clearly that for the completed items, we have this green box with the right tick. And for the unfulfilled to-do items, you'll find this red sign and Q for quit. All right, so let me just run the application one more time. And you can see that when we have run the application, we have cleared the console and we have put the application on the top of the terminal. Okay, let's now add a to-do. Type your to-do, let's say having dinner with my cousin, for example. All right, so you can see that it has an ID number 4, it's auto-incremented. It has been stored 21st of February at 10.04. Let's say that we have already had dinner with the cousin and I want to mark this to-do as a complete one. So simply I will hit C. Now it's going to ask you for the ID of the to-do that you want to mark as complete. If I will hit 4, enter, now you can see that the mark or the sign has been changed from this red cross to the right tick in the green box. Having dinner with my cousin is already a completed task. If I want to delete, for example, I'll hit D. Again, I need the ID of the to-do that I want to delete, number 4. And just like that, it has been deleted from our database. Okay, the application is entirely written in Python programming language. No frameworks, nothing of that. It's just pure Python code. And before we get started, if you're new to the channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to hit that bell to get notifications for future videos. Share the video if you like it at the end of the video. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and start creating our Python to-do CLI style application. All right, so for this tutorial, I'm going to use Visual Studio Code as my main code editor. So let me just go to the folder where I want to create my main application folder. So let's do that to do. So like this, cd to do. Well, let's actually go ahead and open that with Visual Studio Code directly by typing code space dot. And that should open your Visual Studio Code inside your current folder. So what I'm going to do now is to create main.py. This is going to be our main file. Okay. All right. Let me just add a quick comment to do program written in Python. So the first thing that I want to import is the operating system module. So OS is a module that mainly helps for interacting with the operating system. Okay, we're going to see why we need that later. Also, I want to import pickle. So as I told you, you don't need to install it. It's already pre-installed inside Python. And as you can see, there is a small description here that says that creates portable serialized representations of Python objects. So we'll need pickle here to save and load to and from files. Usually pickle helps doing that, also helping to send Python objects if you have a closed network. It helps you sending these objects over network. Also, it helps in something like caching computations by storing the results in a serialized form. So we're going simply to use pickle to create a file, to write to a file, to save to a file, and to load from a file. It's going to play the role of database. And the last thing that I need to import from datetime, I need the datetime. And that's a class that it's usually very useful to handle dates and times in any sort of application written in Python. And as you guessed it, we will need the datetime class in order to save our to-do with the date and the corresponding time. All right. So first of all, I need to initialize an empty list to store our to-do items. All right, so I'm going to call that to-dos, and that's essentially going to be an empty list. Also, let me show you here, we will need to create that to-do file. It's going to have an extension of PKL, which stands for the pickle. So let's create that to-do underscore file. That's going to be our main database file, if you will, and that's going to be to-dos.pickle. So I'm going to try as much as I can to add comments for you guys to understand each code line. So here we'll say define name for storing to-dos. All right, the next thing that I want to do is I want to define a class to represent each to-do item. And that class, I'm going to call it to-do. Right, so we will have our dunder init. First argument is going to be self, then we need a title, we need the time, so created at. Also, we will need a Boolean value for the completion, is completed. Essentially, is going to be, as a default, we're going to give it the value of false. So is completed is going to be initially to false. Oops. All right, so let's do self.title is equal to title. So if you're not familiar with object-oriented programming principles, and you might be wondering, what is that word or keyword self? Well, self actually pertains to the self object, okay? The to-do object itself created at whatever time is, has a title, whatever the title is, and whether it's completed or not. So this is the blueprint for, any object that you will create later. So self.createdAt is going to be equal to createdAt naturally, and also self.isCompleted is underscore completed is going to be equal to isCompleted. All right, perfect. Let's think now what we need to do actually. We need to save our to-dos to a file, and we need to read from a file. But these steps are going to take action later. First, we need to add or create the functionality of adding a new to-do to our to-dos list. I'm just going to leave a comment here just to remind ourselves that here we need to create a function to save to-dos to our pickle file. So we need also to create a function to read the to-dos. All right, we're going to add that later. But for now, we need to start by creating a function that adds a new to-do item. So simply, I'm going to call that function add underscore to-do. It will not take any argument. Simply, I need a variable. I'm going to call it title, and that's going to be equal to input, and we're going to ask the user to type your to-do. All right, so this is to prompt the user to enter a to-do item. So that's the title variable. Also, I need created at variable. This created at variable is going to utilize the date time here. That's the date time class that we have imported from the date time module. So date time, we're going to access a method called now. And now simply, as you can see, it's just going to display the current time, right? So we need to change the format a little bit. So we're going to do that as a string. So we need to change the format. So we'll do stir f time. So stir f time, it says here that format using stir frame time. So stir f time, as you can see, that's a method to format the time, the date and time, right? The current date and time. So we're going to choose that. And then inside parentheses and double quotes, we will have the modulo or the percentage sign D and / percentage sign M, small m, not capital, okay? Space, then we'll have again the percentage H, and then we'll have colon and percentage sign M. And let me debunk this for a moment. So this is a format string, okay? Each of the format string or the format codes represents a component for the date and the time, as you can see. So the first sign here, this one, the percentage D, this actually represents the day of the month as a 2-digit number, okay, from 1 to 31st. Next, the M basically represents the month as a 2-digit number from 1 to 12. That's actually preceded by slash, okay? So we will have the day and we will have the month. Next, the H or the capital H, this represents the hour in 24-hour format from 00 to 23. And next, this capital M basically represents the minute as 2-digit number from 00 to 59, also preceded by this time colon, not slash. Okay, so this is actually to format the time, the date and the time, okay? Right, so this is formatting the date and time. Next, we want to create the to-do object. Okay, so create the to-do object. So what I'm going to do is to instantiate the to-do class by creating a to-do object. Right, so this to-do object, we're going to utilize our to-do class that we have created, and we will need various arguments. All right, the first argument we need is the title, and the second argument is going to be naturally the created at. All right, we're going to leave it like that for the moment. That's the basic to-do object, and each to-do object I will need to add it to the to-do list, the one that we have created here above. So we're going actually to append each to-do item to the to-dos list. So to do that, we're going to say to-dos.append. We're going to pass inside here the to-do. And just again add a comment. We're going here to say add or append each to-do item to the to-dos list. And after that, we will need to save to the pickle file. But as we haven't created yet this function, I'm going to leave an empty or a comment here. So we'll say this is reserved to save to the pickle file. All right, so this is the main function to add a new to-do item. The second function that I want to create is to print all the to-dos, the interface actually in the CLI. So just add a comment here. We'll say, so here we said function to add a new to-do item. Here we'll say function to print all to-dos. So actually this is going to be a printing function. So we'll say print underscore all underscore to-dos. It's not going to take any arguments. So feel free to change the art, if you will. The table, I made it this way with the plus signs and the hyphens, and then those pipes to separate between different attributes like ID, to-do title, created at, and completed. So that's going to be the head of the table. Next, inside that print all to-dos function is to iterate through the to-dos and print each one. So how we can achieve that? Simply, we're going to say for I to do in enumerate class, and inside we're going to pass our to-dos. This is going to iterate over the to-dos list using this enumerate class or function, if you will. That's going basically to return both the index and any corresponding value, which is the to-do for each item in the list. So let's break this down a little bit. What's that I plus 1 colon 2? This part actually represents the index of the to-do item in the list. So it's going to be incremented by 1. Since in Python and any other programming language we have 0 base index, so we're going to start by incrementing from 1. And that's going to be right aligned within a field width of 2 characters. Okay, so this is the debunking of this part. Next, this part to-do.title colon 35, this part represents the title of the to-do item, as you might guess it, but it's left aligned within a field of 35 characters. So that's very similar in what you would do in something like MySQL database when you want to assign characters. So in MySQL, you might want to specify the column width and the alignment in the query result display. That's exactly what we're doing here, but in a different way in a simple formatting in Python. And as you may guess that's exactly the same thing for the to-do dot created at 12, because we're not going to have more than 12 characters for the hour, the minute, the month, and the day. And finally, this part here actually represents the check mark if the to-do item is marked as completed. Otherwise, it's going to represent that cross mark. It's going to be centered within a field of width of 11 characters. And it's going to be centered in a field width of 11 characters. Okay, so that's the debunking of the format printing. And at the bottom, that's going to be the closing line for the table itself. Okay, after all of the to-do items, that's going to be the finalizing line that's going to, shape the table. Good, so we're done with the print all to-dos function. Let's create the function that's going to mark the to-do as complete. So we'll call that mark as complete. And then I'm going to call that function that we have created, print all to-dos. And then I'm going to, create the ID of that to-do object. And that's naturally going to, prompt the user to enter the ID of the to-do. Next, what I want is to mark the to-do as complete. Okay, so remember that we have the is completed here is false, okay, by default in our to-do class. So when I'm going to mark it as completed, I'm going to change that actually. So inside the to-dos and that specific to-do ID, I want to access that property is underscore completed to be equal to true. So simply here what I have done is that I have marked the to-do item as completed. And again, I will need to save to the pickle file. Okay, we'll leave that for a moment. Okay, we'll do pass, for example. All right, so this is the function to mark a to-do item as completed. We can, we can add try except code block. It's just doing that on the fly, by the way. Let's do try. And here, let's do except if we'll have any value errors. Okay, we have index errors. We can have index errors, right? If you will enter an index or an to-do ID that doesn't exist in the to-dos list. So we can do index error. So except index error, we'll say here print invalid value or invalid to-do ID, for example. Also, we can do value error, right? So if we have entered, for example, characters instead of numbers. So value error, right? So we'll say invalid, okay, we can say invalid input. Yeah, I think this is a good way to handle any potential errors that might occur. All right, good. Function that deletes a specific to-do item. All right, so I'm going to call that function delete underscore to do, and it's not going to take any arguments. Again, simply I'm going to call the print all to-dos function that we've created above. Now I need the to-do ID. So again, it's going to be exactly the same code. And once we have the to-do ID, we're going to utilize the del keyword embedded in Python. So del is a keyword that it's used to delete objects in Python. It can be used to delete elements from a list, slices from a list, variables, whatever you want. Simply, we're going to say del and the to-dos list with the sub to-do underscore ID. It's as simple as that. Okay, the great thing about Python is simplicity. I know Python sometimes it takes a lot of heat because of the, very weak, beginner-friendly, blah, blah, blah. But, I don't agree, because the way I see it is that the programming language should not be complicated in order to be, sophisticated and, great for, creating applications, maintaining applications, and so on. Python is a great language. It's very simple, a very beginner-friendly language, and it's used to create very complex applications. And after deleting, I want also to save to pickle file. Again, we'll do pass for now. And also, let's wrap everything inside a try except code block. Actually, that shouldn't be here. Just like that. All right, so let's do this. Let's do try. Let's do except. That's actually, we're going to do the same thing. Index error and value error. Let's do Control C, Control V. All right, so that's exactly the same idea. If you have an index error, you will be you will receive this message. If you have a value error, you will receive this message. Next, I want to create a function that shows all of the options to the user, whether you want to add, to delete, to mark as completed, or to quit. I'm going to call this function show underscore options. And here I'm going to use the while loop. And here the logic is going to be as follows. While true, I want to prompt the user to choose A to add, D to delete, C to mark complete, or Q to quit. So if user choice is A, we're going to call this certain function to add the to do. If user choice is going to be D, we're going to call the delete to do, and so on. So to achieve that, I'm going to use the while loop. So while true, use this variable. I'm going to call it user choice. The user choice is going to prompt the user to enter the corresponding letter to the action that the user wants to take. A to add a to-do, D to delete a to-do, C to mark complete, Q to quit. Right? So this is the user choice. So I'm going to use your input and convert it to, so if you will enter it to an upper letter, that's fine. If you will enter a small letter, this function here is going to convert this letter to an upper letter. Taskmaster. I'm going to call our program taskmaster. Now you can use switch case if you want. So for each case, you can, based on each scenario, you will take a different course of action. But I'm going to use if-else statement. So you're free to use whatever you want. Both ways are going to lead to the same outcome, whether you're using the switch case statement or the if-else statement. So we're going to say here, if the user choice is equal to A, in this case, I'm going to invoke the add to do function. Then else if or elif, the user choice is equal to, in this case, we have letter D to delete. So we're going to invoke the delete to do function. Next, I want the C letter. In this case, I want to invoke the mark as complete, right? Then the last one is the Q to break out of the loop. So we'll say break. Maybe before break, we can say something like thank you. Or it's called taskmaster, right? We called it taskmaster, right? Have a united day. Something like that. All right, so we have broken outside of the loop. Else we're going to print, if for example you will enter other command, if you will enter other letter, we're going to say command not found. And then at the bottom here, we're going to invoke the print all to do's function, print all to do's function. All right, so this is very clear, I hope, for you guys. It's very simple. It's just if-else statement. So if name is equal to main code block. So the first thing before running the program, I want to clear all the console, as I showed you in the demo before. So for that, I'm going to use the operating system or the OS module, as we have imported as the first module. So os.system, we're going to say CLS, the CLS to clear the console, right? If the os.name is equal to NT, else we're going to clear. So this line here actually clears the console simply. Right? Next, I want to print everything or to set the text of printing into green color. So to do that, I'm going to say print and then like /033, then open just one bracket. And then here we'll have 32 semicolon 1M. This is the code to set the text to green. Yeah, and then we will invoke the show options method that we have just created. Also, we will need one additional method. It's going to create it here below. This function actually is going to check if this is the first time that you run the app. Because if so, we're going to check if the to-do file or the pickle file exists already. In this case, we're going to read the to-dos from the file. Else, we're going to create that file. Okay, so that's all what it does. But for now, let's go here above, create those two functions to save the to-dos and to read from the to-dos file. So let me actually start by creating the save to-dos function. So save _to_ file. So I'm going to say with open and the to-do file, the second argument, as you can see here the mode, open text mode R, which stands for read. But actually we want to write because we're going to save to the file. So it's going to be WB. And you will find here that there is some explanations. So the character is W, for example. So we have WB. W stands for or pertains to opening for writing, truncating the file first. right? And B is for binary mode. So we are writing in binary. With open as file, then we're going to use the pickle dot method called dump. So you see here that dump function takes different arguments. In our case, we'll have the first argument as the to-dos list, and the second argument is going to be the file. So pickle.dump open close paren. Inside here, we will have the to-dos, and the second is going, or the second argument is going to be file. All right, so this is simply the save to file function. The read from file function, here I'm going to have the to-dos as global variable, and I'm going to say if os.path. So here I'm actually checking if the to-do file exists already in the current directory. So if os.path.exists, and the file is the to-do file, that's the reference or the variable for our pickle file. Forgot the column. In this case, I will say with open, and I want the to-do file. And now instead of writing, I'm going to read from the file. So we're going to read binary. Right? And I'm going to set the to-dos to be equal to pickle.message called load to load the file that's in the current directory. Let's get back to the bottom of our code here and create this function to check if this is the first time that you run the app or not. So function to check if this is the first time you So I'm gonna call it actually, is this your first time? So I'm going to check by using if-else statement. I'm going to check if os.path.exists, kind of like what we have done above, the to-do file as main input. If that's the case, if actually so you're actually checking if this to-do file exists. If that's the case, we're going to invoke the read from file method. And also we're going to print all to-dos method. Else we're going to, you know what, we can actually take this print and put it here. This welcome message. That's going to be, as that's the first time you run the application, welcome to Taskmaster. And then we're going to invoke the add to do, right? The add to do function. And also we're going to print all the to-dos function. Also down here below, I want, of course, to run is this the first, or is this your first time function? So I'm going to invoke that. And yeah, I think that's all. That's everything. To do ID, that's going to be -1 here. And also don't forget to save to the pickle file. So we're going to actually invoke the save to file function. And that's the same thing here. And also, let's not forget to save the file method to invoke it here. And also, I remember there was a place we have missed to save. Yeah, this is reserved to save pickle file. Yeah, exactly. So save to file. It's going also to be invoked here in the add to do function. Yeah, it looks good to me. Let's go ahead and try that out. So I forgot the name. It's main.py. Okay. So let's go ahead and do Python main.py. Great. Welcome to Taskmaster. Type your to-do. Let's say, for instance, that we want to have coffee with colleague. Great stuff. Have coffee with colleague with the ID #1, created at, completed. All looks perfect to me. So let's say that we want to mark as complete. So I'm going to hit C, enter. Enter the ID of the to-do. So we'll enter #1. Great. Have coffee with colleague. That's a completed task. Let's add another one. Let's say studying, for example, or I don't know, studying Polish language. Good. That's not completed. Now, if I want to delete the completed item, which is number 1, I will hit D, enter. I'll enter the ID of the to-do that you want to delete, of course. That's going to be ID number 1, enter. And now that ID number 1 has been deleted, and the only task remaining in our to-do table is studying Polish language. And as you can see, the date time is well formatted, and yeah, you can see here that's 1 p.m. Exactly. Today is 21st of February, so great stuff. Our application is working perfectly. And let me actually show you that our application has created this todos.pkl, the pickle file. That's a binary file. Of course, nothing will be shown here. Alright guys, so if you've made it so far, you're a superstar. Thank you so much for watching the whole tutorial. I appreciate it, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Till then, stay safe and be well. See you later guys.